All right, who have we got here? What's your names, boys?
Noah.
Noah?
Simba.
Simba, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you, and thank you for sitting down for a conversation. All right, I got this sign here. Should animal cruelty be illegal? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it depends on what animal.
Yep.
It's like dogs, cats, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yep.
No.
Dogs and cats? Yep.
Like pets.
Yep.
Pets and stuff, I don't think. But like, me personally, I do eat meat, and athletes, a lot of my meat is for protein.
Sure.
So that's how I get most of my like.
Right, so what you're saying is it should be illegal to treat pets with cruelty and abuse, but other animals that you eat, it should be legal. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't like support like beating them or anything.
So what would be the least cruel way to treat an animal inside of a slaughterhouse?
Probably like if you're trying to kill them to like eat something, like just inject them or something, not chop them.
Okay, so inject them. So you're saying where there's like no pain, ideally?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll come back to that, bro. What's your thoughts, man? Do you think animal cruelty should be illegal or legal?
I agree with Noah. I think any animal that's like a pet
Yep.
or like a household animal shouldn't be treated with cruelty. But
Okay.
if it's like an animal that you eat for, say, like a cow or like pigs and stuff,
Yep.
I don't think it should be like a cruel way of killing them, but the quickest, most humane way of doing it, I think that's all right.
What do you think humane means?
Like something that won't cause them a lot of pain and quickest death possible.
Not quite. So humane means to show compassion or benevolence. That's the actual definition.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a compassionate or benevolent thing to slice an animal's throat, even if you did it quickly?
I wouldn't say so, no.
No.
But-
So do you think humane would be the right word to put before the word slaughter or murder?
Nah.
Nah, doesn't make sense.
Nah.
What do you think cruelty means?
It's like
What does it mean to be cruel?
verbally like being mean, but if it's like physical, like beating them.
Yeah, man.
like,
To inflict pain or
yeah,
suffering. Would
yeah.
you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. So just summarize both of what you said. So cruelty towards household pet animals,
Yeah.
illegal. Should be illegal. We
Yeah.
shouldn't harm them, cause any pain or suffering.
Yeah.
When it comes to the animals that you eat,
Yeah.
whilst you don't agree with being cruel to them, you still think that we should be able to kill them, to eat them, but it should just be done in a way that minimizes pain as much as possible. Is that what I'm hearing from you both?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Now, let's say in a hypothetical, because the reality is, what happens in a slaughterhouse involves a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. Can we
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
They aren't injecting them with some poison that puts them to sleep gently. That's not what's happening. Do you know why that's not happening?
Because like more expensive.
More expensive, very time consuming. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
In reality, 8 billion humans and it's only growing. Do you really think that that's ever going to happen?
No.
No. No. Now, let's say it does happen. Let's say that tomorrow every animal killed inside of a slaughterhouse is done in a way that inflicts no pain. Do you still think that that animal deserves the right to live, knowing that you didn't have to eat them in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, me personally,
Yeah.
I think that animals and humans are different. Animals don't have the so-called rights.
Sure.
But yes, I think they deserve to live, but in an industry where it almost feeds the whole world, I think that it should be okay or legal to kill them or put them to sleep to serve the world.
Okay. So when you say serve the world, do you actually think it's a necessity to be feeding animals to people?
For me, like protein and like stuff.
Even though
like
you can get protein from plant-based foods and vegan foods?
that. You can, but you don't get the same. In my opinion, you don't get the same benefit from it.
Why do you think that's the case?
Just because like I don't think it's like natural protein. It's
What's unnatural about it?
like, unnatural is like plant-based meat isn't like a already made. Like if you like kill an animal, it's like protein's already in it, like all that sort of stuff. When it's like
Well, you
beef
can
or-
get protein from just natural plant-based foods, legumes, tofu. These are all natural foods. But even if you're talking about the plant-based alternatives, which are just composed of natural foods such as pea protein, etc., soy protein, whatever it is,
Yeah.
do you still think that just because something's natural or unnatural, is that where we get our morality from? Do we justify harming somebody because it's natural?
Like as I said before, animals and humans are classified
let's come
differently.
back to that.
So I wouldn't say that you could call an animal a somebody as if it's a person.
So would you say
Cannibalism-
there's something?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's something.
So you think they're an
rather than-
object? Because that's what
To-
something means.
To an extent, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like obviously they're still a living thing, but you can't treat them the same as a human. You don't sit down and have a conversation with a cow or.
But do you think they're an object? Do you think that they are inanimate, they don't have any feelings, nervous system. What do you think about that, bro?
Well, I mean, I am a meat eater personally.
Sure.
But like, obviously, I do believe the fact that you can gain a lot of nutrition from just a plant-based diet, which is something we actually learn in school.
Yeah, man.
We watched a documentary on it.
I'm glad to hear. What documentaries though?
I've heard it's called Game Changers.
I know that one's a good one.
Yeah, just coming from a meat eater's perspective, obviously it's not good to kill anyone or any animals, against complete violence in general, but I've grown up eating it from what my parents cook and everything like that, so I don't have the best knowledge on any of this stuff, but
I was the exact same as you, by the way. I enjoyed the taste, and I was also raised that way.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to come back to you because you said there's a difference between humans and non-humans, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is differences. There's no denying that in cognition, physical appearance, the way we behave and interact with one another. But can you define a trait that humans have that animals don't have that justify killing them for an unnecessary meal? What trait is it about them?
Well, I don't think that there's any trait in anything that justifies to kill it.
Sure.
So even if it's an animal, like there's no specific trait that would justify killing an animal.
Okay. So how do you justify killing animals?
Cause it's like that's my
Taste?
It's like taste, diet. It's like helps.
Habit, the way you've been raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
which also kind of comes back to the Game Changers, which shows that most athletes would get more optimal fuel and a lot more benefits from a plant-based diet.
What I will say, I did study nutrition at uni. Whilst there are a lot of benefits of going vegan, even for athletes, the best available science does show that there's no difference between an omnivorous athlete and a vegan athlete in terms of performance. There's no significant difference. To be honest, whilst I'd like to know that there's a benefit, it's actually kind of nice knowing that you're not going to experience any difference. You're not going to experience any detriment from going vegan. It really comes back to the ethical choice here. Knowing that you can thrive on both diets, really, but you can get a lot of extra benefits in terms of health and longevity on a vegan diet. Knowing you can thrive, really, what excuse do we have to keep abusing and murdering animals? Now, you've said taste, the way you've been raised. I can relate to that. For 18 years of my life, that was the same for me. Now, knowing that you can get all that same taste and flavor, nutrients, it's just as convenient nowadays. Do you really think that is a good enough justification to send animals into slaughterhouses?
Well, if you put it that way, you really shouldn't be killing animals, because if you're getting the exact same stuff and the exact same taste, there is no point.
Good response.
Because if you can make plants taste like chicken,
well, you can.
Why kill an animal to eat chicken?
Yeah. What do you think about that, bro?
I agree with what Jake said. If you can get the same benefits and same everything from a plant-based diet, then there is really no need to kill animals.
No justification, you would say.
And
what do you think, brother?
I mean, if I could it would definitely help if I could see the science, which probably is. I probably could find it. But the way, if I could see the science that going plant-based would help me keep me on the same track for sport, then there would be a higher chance of me going to it.
A good starting place for that, if you are interested genuinely, is so dietetic associations. I'm pretty sure it's the American Dietetic Association. They actually have a consensus, so among all those dietitians in that association, that a well-planned plant-based diet, as with all diets, well-planned ideally, is suitable for all stages of life, infancy to elderly, including athletes. Now, you can look that up for yourself. Just search up the dietetic consensus on vegan diets. You can see that for yourself, and that will lead you to all the research that led to them to make that decision. Knowing that dietitians around the world are actually at that consensus, do you think that that's enough of a reason for you to believe that you can be healthier on a vegan diet?
I mean, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
And the millions of vegans around the world that are healthy?
Yeah.
Yep.
At the end of the day, I completely agree with you, and I would, if you can make plants taste like chicken, do it instead of killing the animal.
Yeah,
but I've been growing up, cooked, my dad would cook,
brother,
I'd just eat meat.
Yeah, man.
What I'd eat, so.
What you've been raised to do. Now, again, the same question can be asked. Just because we've been raised to do something that we would now consider morally wrong, that's unjustifiable, should we continue doing it, knowing that you can just change? Yeah. Now, I'll ask you, what would be the number one benefit of actually going vegan if you made that decision?
It's cheaper.
Cheap, that does come into it. Depends. You can be an expensive vegan too.
Probably a cleaner diet.
Yeah, cleaner diet, healthier, you meaning?
Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't done much research on it, but one, it could most likely be cheaper and probably a lot healthier.
Sure.
Pretty healthier for your body with all the fats and stuff you get from meat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm young, so I don't actually have the money to buy my own vegan stuff, so it kind of comes down to what my dad did.
So what your parents feed you. I'll come back to that, brother. That's a good point to make. Okay, so you just listed a bunch of benefits for yourself.
Yeah.
The number one benefit is actually for animals, because they're no longer going to be sent to slaughterhouses where they'll be abused and murdered, and they won't be kept on farms and bred into existence where they will be exploited and abused on farms too, because that is standard practice. So number one benefit's for them, but for you guys, the number one benefit is you're all disagreeing with animal abuse, can I assume? Yeah. So the number one benefit for you is that by going vegan, you won't be considered a hypocrite anymore, because you won't be paying for animal abuse or asking for it or demanding it, whatever it is. How do you feel about that?
I mean,
I feel like it's a better idea.
Better idea? You'd prefer not to be a hypocrite? Would you be more comfortable with that? Okay.
Would you agree that instead of taking the animals to slaughterhouses and killing the animals ourselves, when they die on
like
their
old
complete
age
terms, or whatever they die from, is that the time that we can eat
them?
Look,
if they weren't exploited and they weren't abused and they weren't murdered by somebody, that's your choice, but put a human in that context. Would you eat the human, or would you give them a funeral and respect their life?
I would give them a funeral and respect their life, as of for the fact we can't really eat humans though.
We can. There are people that do it.
Oh, really?
There are some people that, there are some health risks to it. People do it though, if they want to. I'm just talking about morals here. So whether or not it's healthy for you, if people wanted to. The reason we give them a funeral though is because we honor their life, right?
Yeah.
We want to remember them.
We could do the same with
We could do the same with animals. But look, if it really came down to it, you could. But the reason people don't do that is because you'd be waiting years, tens of years to really have an animal die of old age. And then do you really want to risk your health by eating an animal that died of old age on the floor? No, I wouldn't want to do that for my own health reasons. Yeah. Okay, we've really come down to this conclusion that we wouldn't feel comfortable being a hypocrite. That's what turned me vegan. I saw what happened to these animals and I realized I didn't want to be a hypocrite anymore. I realized I didn't have any justifications to continue paying for it, knowing that you could get a lot of taste, a lot of health benefits by going vegan. And it's just as convenient nowadays, really. Even if there was a slight difference.
Would vegetarian consider be the same?
Yeah, so do you know what happens in the dairy and the egg industries, as well as entertainment and clothing? So what happens is egg dairy, very same concept, it's the same as the meat industry. Male chicks, male calves that don't produce milk and eggs, what happens to them? They get killed, Male chicks macerated or gassed alive on their first day of life. Bobby calves, they get killed within weeks or months of their birth. And if they are the mother hens or the mother cows, when they're not considered profitable at a fraction of their natural lifespan, they're also sent to slaughterhouses. Not only the slaughtering, they're actually exploited and enslaved their entire life. By farmers, that is standard practice. They have to be raped and impregnated so that their babies could be kidnapped from them. So it's a life of suffering, really. Even though there might be periods where they're not suffering. We wouldn't justify that for a human.
I've heard that there's something that happens to our environment the more times we eat like plants and stuff.
The best available science says that we'll actually be helping the environment by going vegan. If the world went vegan tomorrow, which isn't the case, but if it did, the science shows that it would be freeing up as much land as the entire continent of Africa, because most of the land used in animal agriculture is for raising animals and keeping them on large amounts of land. I mean, we see it for ourselves when you go driving. Like these cows can take over a lot of land, as well as all the food that has to be fed to these animals. Right. Okay. Finish up. Would you boys consider going vegan at some point in the future or today?
I think, well, right now, obviously I couldn't because I live with my parents, so it's not really my choice on what, on what I eat and what gets made. But I think if I did the research and I saw the science that shows that switching to a vegan diet or a plant-based diet gives me the same benefit as a meat-based diet or an omnivorous diet, then I think I would consider it.
I can give you my word that is the case, but I do want you to research that for yourself. Good starting place for you guys is to watch Game Changers if you want to learn about that stuff, but then also Dominion, which is actually exposing exactly what happens to these animals, because words only hit so hard when I'm talking to you guys today. But if you were to see what happens to these animals for yourself, as well as learning about the benefits of going vegan, those two together can really be powerful to set you on that path to no longer exploiting animals anymore. But parents, it's not your choice a lot of the time. Okay, I'll just ask you a quick question. If your parents put a dead dog on your dinner plate tonight, would you eat them? No. What would you do?
Go buy my own food.
Swear at my parents.
You'd get pretty angry. You'd just do everything you can to avoid it, I can assume. Why not do the same for these animals that are morally no different to dogs?
Probably because, say they put one of my dogs on them. I built a connection with those dogs. You can build easier to build connections with dogs than it is like pigs.
But it doesn't matter it doesn't make a difference to the victim. Whether you're friends with them or not, they don't want to have their head chopped off.
I know, but it's more emotionally connected to me.
I understand that. But when it comes to killing somebody, it's more about how the victim feels about it and not you. And that's why I would say there's no moral difference, because whether they're a dog or a cow, they both should have the same right to life. Yeah.
I think like socially around the world, like you ask anyone that question, obviously they wouldn't be happy with a dead dog on the table.
Sure.
But
it depends on what country.
Yeah, but for the majority of the people like around the world, they're fine with having like say cow or chicken or lamb or whatever on their plate, because
that's how we've been raised.
Yeah, that's how we've been raised, and socially around the world, those things are acceptable.
Absolutely.
And I feel like in a lot of people's eyes, they're not really viewed as, how can I say this? They're not really viewed as something that's meant to be like looked after well or taken care of, or like felt compassion
Absolutely.
for.
But do you think just because we've been raised that way to think like that justifies continuing to think like that for the rest of your life?
No, because there's a lot of things, like even say alcoholism, for example.
Absolutely.
A lot of people grow up in a house where their parents or other siblings or family members abuse alcohol.
Absolutely.
And obviously that doesn't make it a justification to become an alcoholic and spend all your money on alcohol.
Do you know what used to be normalized?
What?
Drugs.
Human slavery did. And it still is, but I mean actually normalized in society. Yeah. Sexism. Yeah. Humans used to be raised to think that was normal and the right thing to do. But what did we do?
We abolished it.
We abolished it. Why did we abolish it?
It's bad for humanity.
It's bad for humanity, but who is it worse for?
Those people.
The victims.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference about these animal victims that we have on our dinner plates every day? There is no difference really morally.
Yeah.
In physical difference, cognitive differences, yes. But that's not enough of a justification to keep victimizing them.
Yeah.
Putting them into slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
So do you think at some point you will demand to be vegan? I know like it's hard when you don't have that choice, but as I said, you put a dead dog on your plate, you would do everything you can to avoid eating them. Now it's just about giving that same thought and compassion to the other animals that really deserve that equal right to life. Yeah. Now, if in the future you will consider doing it, maybe not today, but if you imagine yourself going into that slaughterhouse, you're one of those animals, you're about to have your head chopped off and you're watching other animals in front of you have their head chopped off. Would you want your oppressor to go vegan in the future, or would you want them to do it as soon as possible?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I think for me it's the same as him. I obviously I don't have the money to cook for myself. Sure. Obviously, as of today, I'll,
Do you think you can ask your parents?
I could ask my parents 100%.
And explain why?
Cutting. Yeah, obviously, as of today, if after researching and stuff, cutting down meat as much as as possible with my parents, and then in the future, probably, if after research and figuring it out for myself, then possibly changing.
I'm always going to advocate from the animal's perspective, and I'm always going to say that. And as you guys just agreed, as soon as possible is the only moral choice to make here.
Yeah.
But when it comes to practicality, look, I can't force you to do it. No one's going to force you to go vegan today. But I always want you to keep the victims in your mind, and however long you however long you choose not to be a vegan, what's going to happen?
More animals will keep dying, and
animals are going to continue to be abused and murdered on your behalf.
Yeah.
Keep that in your mind, because that was enough to make me feel like I need to change as soon as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a great conversation. And I really hope you guys have a good day and a good life. Yeah,
you too.
Catch you later, boys.
Social media. So
Yeah. Do you want it?